Hey guys, Level Cap here, and welcome to This Week in Gaming, your weekly news recap on everything going on in the world of video games. This week, some of the cracks in Riot's Vault of Gold are starting to show. A major gaming initiative is facing a harsh deadline. STALKER 2 got a major update that everyone was waiting for, and much more. Riot Games, once one of the industry's most lucrative companies, appears to be tightening its belt after years of heavy spending. This week, Riot canceled Hytale, a highly anticipated open-world RPG inspired by Minecraft that had been in development for 7 years at Hypixel Studios, which Riot acquired in 2020. Reports indicate that Riot gave developers at least several months to find new funding, but no other publishers were interested, leading to the project's shutdown. Hytale's development was costly, with the studio founder revealing monthly expenses of $400,000 before his 2019 departure. He says the project seemed like it was about 2 years away from release at that time, but the scope creep and technical overhauls likely led to ballooning costs and delays. Adding to speculation about Riot's financial pressures, the company just announced it will allow sports betting sponsorships in League of Legends and Valorant esports events to help fund their financially struggling Tier 2 competitive scene. Previously, Riot had banned those sponsorships, even as esports betting has become a multi-billion-dollar industry with over $10 billion reportedly wagered on League of Legends alone. Riot says it'll vet all betting partners and support regulations and education to minimize negative impacts, especially given past match-fixing scandals in Valorant. Betting ads will not appear in official event broadcasts for now. The move suggests Riot is seeking new revenue streams, as its main games alone may no longer be enough to sustain both development and its expansive esports ecosystem. This marks a notable shift for Riot, which until recently was known for lavish spending on projects like the $250 million Arcane animated series, which holds the record for the most expensive animated show ever made. Alongside Hytale's cancellation, Riot recently axed Smash Bros. Style fighting game in development with some layoffs. They closed its indie publishing label Riot Forge and canceled an in-house streaming service that would have competed with Twitch and hosted all of their live events. The Stop Killing Games initiative, led by Ross Scott, is facing a crucial deadline. If it doesn't reach 1 million signatures by mid-July, Scott says he will end his efforts. This campaign aims to push for a new regulation that would prevent games from becoming unplayable when DRM services or online services are shut down. Unlike a typical petition in the US, reaching 1 million signatures would legally require the UK government to consider these proposals, which include requiring clear end-of-life plans for live service games being outlined before purchase. Other proposals include alternatives to DRM that would allow people to continue playing those games once the online services go offline. The movement has gained attention due to recent high-profile game shutdowns such as The Crew, Concord, Resident Evil Reverse, Defiant, Multiverses, and several EA Sports titles, cutting off millions of players from the games that they purchased. However, according to Ross, progress has stalled around 400,000 signatures, which is being blamed on misconceptions fueled by popular streamer Pirate Software. Pirate Software claims the initiative would impose unrealistic and detrimental restrictions on developers, a stance Scott says is based on misinterpretations of the campaign's actual goals. Pirate Software's content on the matter is highly viewed and has had a big impact on the perception of the matter. In response, Scott released a detailed video this week addressing some of the perceived inaccuracies with Pirate Software's content while reiterating the initiative's requests and goals. Since Scott released this video, several major content creators have independently released their own videos publicly supporting Stop Killing Games and backing Scott's clarification of Pirate Software's claims. If the initiative gets the signatures it requires, it could be the first major step towards real change for consumers that prevents games from disappearing forever as soon as the studios stop supporting them. And obviously, this issue has much larger ramifications beyond just the gaming world, and it would be interesting to see if these ideas around digital content purchase would eventually work their way into things like digital movie purchases and stuff like that. Stalker 2's latest update is an absolutely critical one. It makes sweeping improvements to the game's unique A-Life AI system that dynamically simulates all NPCs in the world in real time. Prior to this update, A-Life wasn't considered feature complete and had numerous bugs preventing it from working as intended. The developers say the 1.5 update represents their base goals for A-Life and Stalker 2, though more improvements are still in development. Alongside the update, the developers also released the game's mod tools, which include a 700GB download of uncompressed game assets. These tools and assets combined give modders essentially free reign to do whatever they want with the game. In a nutshell, if you're waiting for better AI or mods to play Stalker 2, this patch delivers them. That said, there are still performance issues and bugs the developers are working to address in future updates, so the game isn't entirely out of the woods just yet. The indie football action title Rematch has hit 1 million units sold since it launched on the 19th. The game is similar to Rocket League, except instead of a car, you're actually playing a person kicking a ball towards a goal. And both games also share these enclosed arenas and boost-like mechanics. But the real charm of Rematch is its in-depth simulation of ball control and no rules aggressive gameplay. There's no penalties in Rematch, so players are free to strip the ball or even tackle the ball carrier however they want. All characters on the field are also controlled by real players, adding the need for teamwork to win matches. These developers are really showing their pedigree with their previous success as well with Sifu, which is a kung fu brawler. Both games are punishing but accessible, and reviews constantly praise the game's ability to keep them hooked despite launch bugs and server issues. Dune Awakening's most criticized design issue, the endgame, being mostly PvP focused, is already getting addressed. The game's creative director released an open letter addressing complaints about the focus on PvP. He says their goal is to not force PvE players into PvP combat. A new update on the game's public test client has expanded PvE zones that PvP combat is disabled in, including some of the game's most high reward loot areas, in which they call the Deep Desert, aka the endgame area. In essence, they've effectively made half of the endgame zone PvE only, whereas before PvE areas made up less than 1/5 of the desert map. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 just got a new Endless Wave Horde mode called Siege. This is a 3-player co-op PvE mode that's played in waves of 5. Every 5th wave, there's a boss battle the players have to beat to continue to the next set of waves. After the 15th, the difficulty is increased. Resources become less generous, and there's shorter prep time between waves. There's no wave limit, so how long players can survive is the only goal. The free renown currency in Rainbow Six Siege has been buffed following complaints that it was slower to earn after the X update launched. This currency is used to unlock operators via gameplay, and Ubisoft says the X update lowered the earn rate by roughly 10%. Technically, the game is designed to reward infrequent players with more renown than the previous version of Siege via weekly and daily challenges. However, it seems players viewed the 10% drop in renown as an overall grindier experience. The highly anticipated Death Stranding 2 is now out, and the consensus seems to be that the game is an improvement over the first in terms of making its deep and broad gameplay more accessible, though its narrative is heavier on unskippable cutscenes and exposition that tend to bog things down. Gameplay footage of Resident Evil Requiem was released, showcasing the game's more horror-centric design. Recent entries in the franchise have blended action survival with puzzle solving and horror to create sort of a hybrid experience where you spend a lot of time afraid for your life before you plowed into a monster with a car. For Requiem, the developers avoided picking a central character because they wanted somebody who would be afraid of the horrors they face instead of, drop-kicking whatever pops out of the shadows. The snippets of gameplay showcased are pretty brief, but the game overall looks great, and it's sure to be another solid entry in the franchise if the developers keep things on track. Now, just a heads up for Battlefield fans out there, another round of playtesting for Battlefield Labs is happening this week, so stay tuned on Monday for any major leaks or news about the next Battlefield title. And that wraps it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. If you enjoyed it, drop me a like, subscribe for more content like it, and up next, check out what it's like going back to Battlefront 2 this many years later. The game is having a major resurgence right now, and it seems kind of obvious that EA should be thinking about a Battlefront 3 title. Maybe they already are. Either way, check out this video on it, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.